Hello everyone, good evening. So today we are going to talk about Vanda nutrition for Indian climate, specifically for tailored for Bangalore, which is the city where I live. So this approach may work for all the other cities in India as well, but my condition specifically, whatever I have worked is specific to Bangalore. So maybe there will be maybe small modifications one have to do specifically for your city. We will cover that little later. I will tell you what exactly is what we have to look at. So who am I? I've been growing orchids for about 11 plus years, mostly growing species and a lot of Vanda hybrids, primary hybrids. Genus I like the most is Vandas, followed by Dendrobium and terrestrial orchids. I started growing orchids in a small corner in my garden, and then orchids took over rest of my house. I have orchids all around the house now, growing in various forms and shapes. The my interesting storyline that I would like to share with everyone is growing orchids is more a science than an art. Why I'm saying it's a science is fairly repeatable. I am sharing with whatever works for me. By and large it should work as is for you, so that it is repeatable, right? I am thankful to a lot of people who have helped me with a lot of knowledge in growing orchids. I started studying about orchids when I was in grade 10. I learned about Vandas from my botany teacher at that point of time was Mrs. Sarah Abraham, and then later my interest in botany was kindled by Mrs. Tilagavati in grade 11 and 12. But my botany stopped then. I didn't pursue botany as a career, but these are the people who initially created interest in botany and understanding about plants. And then later I moved on to do various other things. And then maybe about 10-12 years back I started getting into growing orchids. During the course, I have interacted with many people world over within our orchid society in Karnataka, various people in India, as well as a lot of people who have shared a lot of information on growing orchids. And whatever I have learned today is through the experiences and knowledge that people have shared with me over the years. So I am thankful to all of them. Maybe I'll do a separate video later on those people and how they have helped me. So before we start into getting into details, I just want to share a disclaimer. I am by no means I am a scientist. So whatever knowledge that I have learned is through interactions with various people. But the technique that I have followed is based on observing and practicing what I'm going to tell you and share you. You are free to choose what you want, and your mileage may vary. Somebody may say, oh, he's using urea, I don't need urea. Is up to you, right? So what works for me is up to you whether you want to follow or not to follow. So we start with watering orchids, because this is essentially the most important item in orchid growing. Proper watering technique is the most essential element of growing healthy orchids. So if you don't water your orchids properly, they won't grow or bloom well, right? So we have to understand orchids in nature receive nothing but rainwater, contains dissolved impurities, bird droppings, decaying matter, and maybe some amount of nutrition that is there in the rainwater in terms of dissolved nitrogen content and whatever. But the most important point here is whatever orchids that are getting in their nature, they don't get calcium nitrate today, magnesium sulfate tomorrow, NPK day after tomorrow, nothing like that. So they get a wholesome meal. And the thought process what I have is to model something around a wholesome meal is what I'm attempting to make. And then before we get into the nutrition aspects, start with good quality water, right? So the water that is good for human consumption, for drinking straight, that water is good for orchids. If the water you drink is not drinkable, has a hard taste, then that water is not good for orchids, right? So from that point of view, keep this simple rule of thumb. you'll be better off starting it that way. So this is basically a graph. This comes from one of my sensors in the grow area. So this is basically a reading on 17th of February 2023. So this is a 24-hour period starting from 7 p.m. the previous day to 6 p.m. the next day. So you see basically the humidity in the night goes to about 65-70%. And then as the sunrise starts at 6 a.m., which is almost the center of the screen, starts dipping, right? So you see the lowest humidity, the blue line starts dipping to about after 1 p.m. or 1:40, it starts going down to below 30%. And progressively it starts going down till about 5. So you see the spike after 5:50 is the time period where I have watered the orchids. The steep increase is not the natural increase in humidity, but actually the effect of me spraying water. So why this is important is I spray around this time period where the humidity is low, is basically to help plants recover from the heat loss much better than during giving the water during the daytime, right? So here is the reason I water late in the day, to compensate and recover the plants faster. And so this graph is something that you'll have to figure out for your environment, what is it that is suitable for you in terms of watering. So keep this in mind, that this is the reason why I recommend you to water late in the evening, right? So then coming to the watering technique, what I do is I have 2 plastic drums. The first plastic drum is with 70 liters of just plain Kaveri, or which is our municipal water supply. The second 70 liters is what I'm going to do the nutrition solution. The first, what I do is first I thoroughly water with the first 70 liters of from the drum. So I start watering the orchids from the first the first plant I have. I walk through my grow area, start watering, finish watering, and then start spraying the nutrition solution from back from the first plant. So by the time I finish watering the first round of plain water watering to the start of nutrition, it takes about 30 to 45 minutes, right? So I finish plain water watering for about 40 minutes, then come back with the nutrition, start the first plant with nutrition solution. So there is a gap of about 30 to 45 minutes. So this, by the time the plant is hydrated well, I water the plant thoroughly well, wet both the sides of the leaves so that it is good, right? So now coming to certain important aspects of growing Vandas. Water the Vandas in the evening, or time it wherever the humidity is the lowest. Water the roots thoroughly and water the foliage, both sides of the plant, so that the Vanda roots do absorb nutrition. So it is important that we water the foliage well. Always fertilize first with water and then with the nutrition solution. It is always useful. It can help the plants absorb better. See, Vandas are largely with roots hanging around, so keep the infected Vandas away from the healthy ones. So spraying can really spread infection. If you have 1 or 2 infected plants in between healthy plants, just the process of spraying water, the water gets splashed from the unhealthy roots to the healthy roots, and it can really spread the infection very fast, right? So especially if the environment is very stressful, low humidity, high heat, the plants are already stressed, so any of these will spread the infection. So one has to be extremely careful. Ensure that the Vandas really have healthy root tips and roots are always growing, right? So don't have Vandas that don't have any roots, or the roots are aborted or are stunned, right? So these are symptoms that you need to watch out for. You have to ensure that the root Vanda always have good healthy root tips and they are always progressing and growing. The next important aspect is watch for wrinkles in the leaves, right? So wrinkles in any form is a bad sign, right? It means that the plant is undergoing some kind of dehydration. This can usually happen during the initial stages of an infection, or just not right watering procedure. So you have to ensure that you water the Vandas really well. If the wrinkles are still persistent, there is something systemically wrong. You have to carefully look at the plant and review what needs to be done to handle this particular situation. So wrinkles usually start with the topmost leaves and slowly progress downwards, slowly killing the plant. So you have to be careful in understand the moment you see the dehydration, you have to take a corrective action. The another important aspect is we should not lose leaves of Vanda, many leaves of Vanda. More leaves are good in terms of keeping the older leaves active and making food. Food as in photosynthesis is good. It produces more leaves, more new growths, and more new growths meaning more flowers, right? So occasional drop, maybe once a year dropping 1 or 2 leaves is all right, but we should never lose a bunch of leaves or leaves in between. These are all not good signs. The another cultural practice people often do mistake is, I have a small black spot in a leaf, I end up cutting the leaves or cutting roots, massive cut of roots. I have a long root, I will go and cut. Don't do that. Cutting is always makes an opening in the plant and can cause an infection. So if there is an infection, see, if there are cases, if it is like root rot and stuff like that, you can trim. But otherwise, it is better that you don't do any kind of cut, especially again in a stressful environment like low humidity and high heat. Good nutrition. So the most important, the last point that I want to highlight is all about Vandas is providing fantastic nutrition. Good nutrition helps build robust plants so that it gives them good immunity. Good immunity can help the plant to handle any kind of environmental or stress due to infections around them. So it will be really helpful. We give them good nutrition. So this particular video is all about providing them good nutrition. So let's start with the nutrition. We start with 3 solutions. Each of it is 10 liters. So first we start with nutrition solution A. We start with wood vinegar. Wood vinegar is not regular vinegar. So wood vinegar is basically something called as pyrolignaceous acid, where the wood is converted into biochar, and during the process, whatever fume smokes that escape are captured, distilled, and that is called wood vinegar. Wood vinegar has a lot of compounds which are really useful for nutrition in agrochemical industry, and it is recommended. If you have it, you use it. If you don't have it, it is fine. It's an optional compound. But whatever I see is it is very useful in my experience. It has been useful both as a nutrition supplement as well as a pesticide. It has been very good effect for me. The next compound we talk about is fulvic acid. Fulvic acid in a powdered form with more than 80% humidity is a light brown powder. This is the next compound we add. So we take 10 liters of water, add 1 ml of 70 ml of wood vinegar. Then we add fulvic acid of about 10 grams. Stir the solution. Then we add a good brand of calcium nitrate. The good brand of calcium nitrate I recommend is to use either Yara Leva or Mangala imported calcium nitrate. Both these, the calcium nitrate Yara Leva as well as imported Mangala imported calcium nitrate, are pure white in color. The other calcium nitrate or maybe is half white or maybe slightly creamish yellow color. Maybe they don't have, they carry some impurities. So I always recommend that you look at the best form of calcium nitrate that you can provide. So now you have 70 grams of calcium nitrate, 10 grams of fulvic acid, and 1 ml, 70 ml of wood vinegar. Mix the solution. You will get a solution which is brown in color. So you add, you keep that in the drum 2 first. Then you come to solution B. So in solution B, what you do is you first start with powdered seaweed extract. The powdered seaweed extract, I use a concentrated form, so I need only about 3 grams. Liquid form can also be used, but liquid form sometimes the quantity wise we have to find what is the right mix that we have to use. Next, we start with good water soluble foliar feed capable NPK, which is I use is Mangala 19-ol. We need about 65 grams for making 70 liter of overall solution. 70 liter, when I say, is the overall solution that we are making. So add about 65 grams. Then you add about 27 grams of magnesium sulfate, 15 grams of micronutrients. I use Vanda Combi 2 or Rexolin Combi 2, one of the two. Use about 15 grams. Then the next compound which is good is to be added is the fermented special amino acid. The role of amino acid is to improve the uptake of the solution. They internally open up multiple channels for nutrition absorption. So that way, if you normally spray without amino acid, the plant is able to absorb X. With amino acid, the uptake is going to be 3x, 5x based on the environment conditions in terms of humidity for it to, whether it is in the growing season, whatever. But it in general improves the fertilizer absorption. The next item which is important is adding is Succinil P, which is basically a form of potassium silicate. Need very low dose, maybe about 3 grams for making about 70 liters. So now what we do is in the solution B, we add all these compounds that is mentioned, stir them very well, we get another solution. We can add that to solution A. So now we have 20 liters of these two solutions together. Then we add milk powder. The milk powder that I specifically use is the Amul milk powder. The other milk powder, for example, sometimes I had used Nestle or Everyday or other brands. They were curdling a bit, in the sense they were precipitating a bit. So I don't use them. This is the best I found. You need about 10 grams for making dissolve in 10 liters of water. Now you add again this to the previous solutions A and B, and then you top it up with remaining with 40 liters of water. So now you have made the nutrition solution. Then we can, once you spray water very well, then you can add the nutrition solution and then spray the nutrition solution. For large collection, what I typically do is, especially NPK, calcium, magnesium sulfate, calcium nitrate, I buy in a 10 kg or a 20 kg bag. So the advantage is the price is much more economical than when you buy retail 1 kg packs. Second is I buy these and keep it and stock it for maybe 1 to 2 years. So nothing happens. I just keep them away from sun and water, and I keep using them for throughout the year, and they are good, right? So I strongly suggest that people who are having larger collections, not only for orchids, for all your regular plants, you can certainly use them, and it will be beneficial overall in terms of both the economies of scale as well as getting consistent nutrition in terms of a mix. Otherwise, you keep changing NPK, the formulation of NPK may be different, calcium nitrate purity maybe is different. So it is better that you stick to one particular mix of compound so that it gives you stability to experiment maybe 1-2 years. Right, so that's about it, right? So this is what I wanted to share with you. So thank you so much.